Man, is this 2025 tight end draft class impossible for me to rank? Really, from tight end 4 all the way down to tight end 10. It is a stacked group. And one guy I want to bring up today is somebody that, I think is not being talked about nearly enough as a potential weapon in the 2025 NFL draft. But what I will assure you is that after the combine, when he tears it up, he certainly will be. And that guy is Oronde Gadsen II, the tight end out of Clemson. Originally, he caught my eye when I was doing my LaQuint Allen film review, somebody that I love as a running back. And I kind of kept coming back to him, read some things about his story, and we're going to discuss that on the channel today, guys. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video for the algorithm, man. If you love Denver sports and if you love the NFL draft, like I do, then I think you're going to love the content. So I appreciate you guys in advance. All right, well, you know what? Let's get the party started a little bit. Let's talk. Got a couple things I want to go. I wanted to do a film review on him, but a lot of the film that I had from Clemson and the specific games that I want him to watch, for whatever reason, were getting copyrighted. And instead of, you know, kind of doing it off the cuff, what I wanted to do was, just make a quick video for you instead of making you guys wait. Oops, sorry. All right, so let's get it started. Oronde Gadsen, number 19 from Clemson. A couple things that are really interesting here. First of all, as you'll be able to see that they have him listed here at 6'5", 236. But that being said, at the East West Shrine game when he was an invite there, he was 6'4", 247 pounds with 33 and 5/8 inch arms. So a very long, very amazing catch radius, 9 to 7 hands, and a huge wingspan. He's a very big man, big human being, very long. The catch radius is amazing when you look at that. Additionally, a couple things here that really stood out to me big time. First of all, his contested catch rate at 60.7% is very solid. And you saw that in a lot of the film that I was watching. He has a really, really solid hands from what I saw. Only 3 drops last season that were credited to him. A lot of the catches that he was making really were contested across the middle. He would take shots, probably a little bit too many, and he'd hold on to the ball. He's a very, very tough player, first and foremost. So that I love. You look at his season stats this year. He played 13 games. 327 of them from the slot, 183 of them were in line, so as like a blocker. 103 targets, 73 catches, 934 yards, 7 touchdowns. He did have an injury early in the year in 2023 that allowed him to miss the rest of the season, so he only played 2 games. But before that, which was technically his sophomore year, and he's a young senior, by the way, he's only 21 years old, but his sophomore year, so you're talking a kid that's 19 years old. He played in 13 games that year, and a big majority of them in the slot. Big majority of them in the slot, and he had 61 catches on 93 targets, 966 yards, and 6 touchdowns with a 15.8 yards per catch. Ridiculous ability, receiving ability, no doubt about it. I don't know what kind of a inline type of a tight end he's going to be in the NFL, but we're going to have to see. And I think that when you look at what the Broncos are missing, right? Let's read through the tea leaves a little bit here. Sean Payton, as we know, when he was on the Kay Adams podcast, he had talked about, we need a joker. We need either a tight end or a running back that you can do a lot of different things with and playing that joker role, right? And we've seen it a lot throughout his career with Alvin Kamara, with Reggie Bush, with Jimmy Graham, just to name a few, right? He's Taysom Hill. He's always had that joker player that's just a mismatch nightmare. And Jeremy Shockey as well. But when you look at a lot of the differences, right? Like Kamara was very different than Reggie Bush was in terms of he was a better receiver, but not, Reggie Bush is a little bit more kind of dynamic in the way that they use them. But they had similarities at running back, but they definitely had some differences. But then you look at like Jeremy Shockey versus Jimmy Graham, right? Jeremy Shockey was a more complete tight end, somebody that can block, somebody that was very physical, that could also stretch the field. Jimmy Graham, he didn't really have, it's not that he didn't necessarily have interest in blocking, but they never really asked him to block a lot at all. And because he was just a mismatch nightmare and somebody that consistently got open. So there's not really like a physical type, or it doesn't mean that, Sean Payton likes tight ends that can block and also are pass catchers. I think we fell into that narrative, myself included, this season because we were utilized like we just didn't want to use Dulcich at all because he couldn't block. But if he's not a good enough threat to be a receiver, it's it's just not going to necessarily be worth it. And so when you look at this draft, it's actually filled with a lot of those tight ends that are like that. And Oronde Gadsen really fills from a lot of different measurables and kind of some traits that you see on his tape. That role, he's got Joker traits all over him. People talk about Colston Loveland being like the ideal fit for the Broncos and being that Joker type of role. I can make the argument that as a pure receiver, catching the ball and getting open, Oronde Gadsen might be better than Colston Loveland. The thing that makes Colston Loveland really elite in a lot of people's eyes is the fact that he's very well rounded. He can block, and he's played at a really big time program like Michigan. That helps him. And he dominated in a big competition for a long time. But Oronde Gadsen ain't no slouch. A couple of things here that I think is really nice about him. Firstly, he's got NFL bloodlines, which I love. I talked about that in my Mason Taylor film review. And, his father was a receiver, played in the NFL for several years. But secondly, something that I wanted to, show y'all is, oh, sorry, I guess I got to go ahead and share my screen again. So let me pull this up real quick. All right. So as y'all can see in this is 2024, right? So when you go back to 2022, his sophomore season where he blew up, he was a slot receiver. That was his actual position. He was a slot receiver in high school, a slot receiver in college. In 2023, in the 2 games that he played him at slot. He was always deployed as a big slot receiver, and he transitioned to playing tight end in 2024. 1 year of playing tight end, just one, which is why you see him play in line so much more this year. So, I mean, unbelievably raw, but he's still out there making plays. 5 games with over 100 yards, 7 total touchdowns when you include the bowl game, and 934 yards. I mean, unbelievably impressive. And then even when you look at him as just like a run blocker, his overall run blocking grade is, not anything to slouch on. Oops, sorry, this is the wrong tab. Let me go over here. Let's go back to offense. His run blocking grades 66. It's fine, nothing that bad. But given somebody that really didn't, play a true tight end position that much up until this last season, it's really impressive. Now you can see in 2022 he had 297 snaps that he played where he was technically run blocking. So they asked him to do it a lot, but he was always lined up a little bit more of a receiver. He played in line a lot more this past year. And he's certainly gained weight because I don't know where they got this 236 from. It might have been from Clemson. It might have been on other measurements. But coming in at 247 at the Shrine Bowl, the guy is putting in the work. No doubt about that. And another thing, this is probably the most important piece for me that I really was just like, oh, I don't want to say I fell in love with the guy, but I think that he really garnered my attention big time when I saw this exact quote. And I'm going to pull up the Wikipedia page so I can show y'all. So after, having a rough injury in 2023, he came back to Clemson. I came back to Syracuse. I keep getting those 2 schools confused. He came back to Syracuse for his senior year. And he was offered an NIL deal. I don't know how much it was for. He said NIL linked transfer deal. So basically they came up to him and said, hey, if you transfer over to the school, I don't know who that was, you're going to get an NIL deal. A lot of money. You're talking millions of dollars. And he turned it down because he wanted to make a name for himself at Syracuse. That's the kind of dude that I want in my locker room. I haven't seen any interviews of him. I don't even know him personally. But when you read something like that, it really makes my ears perk up of like, oh, this guy's all about ball, man. Being able to come back, turn down a transfer deal, turn down a lot of money from the NIL from another school to be able to have the commitment to go back to war with the guys that he loves, to the school that ultimately he committed to, which you got to love the commitment factor to it, turning down all that money because he wanted to make a name for himself. And I'll tell you guys, if he hasn't already, just wait until you see what he's going to do at the combine. I am certain he is going to blow the combine up. All right, I'm gonna wrap this video up with one last thing. I want to give a huge shout out to CU Andy on X. He's awesome, dope dude. He's got a wonderful scouting website. Does really good film analysis. Very very smart dude. I'm gonna link not only his Twitter profile below. I'm gonna give you guys a link to his website so you can go check some things out. And you can check out the evals, a lot of his mock drafts. It brings a really intuitive type of a insights to a lot of these things that I really certainly appreciated. So let me pull this up too, because this is the evaluation that he had written about Oronde Gadsen. I think he's extremely accurate with a lot of the things that I've seen. So he says, I've referred to Oronde Gadsen as a Kyle Pitts that you can get in the 4th round so many times in the draft season. He's basically a big receiver who holds his own in the blocking game, dynamic with great production. Ain't no doubt about that. You can see a lot of the stats here. So we had talked about the 969 yards and 6 touchdowns. Had an injury, came back for 934 and 7 touchdowns. He really does have an alpha presence on the field. Somebody that's very, very big, very versatile, a lot of speed. Really, there's some athletes, guys. When you talk about this draft class, you talk about guys that are gonna blow the combine up, that are just athletes. Colson Loveland obviously comes to mind. Harold Fannin comes to mind. There's Tyler Warren's going to blow it up the combine too, but it's not so much about his long-term speed. I think Oronde Gadsen is going to test across the board better than all those guys, just based off of what I've seen. So he's that special of an athlete. The versatility is unbelievable. And what I love about him is the fact that he was a slot receiver that transitioned over to be tight end, because that's exactly the Broncos need a slot receiver, and the Broncos obviously are desperate for a tight end. So that positional versatility is huge. And if you're not needing to tip your hand, just because Gadsen is on the field, that's going to be a big plus, a big win. I love this guy as a prospect for the Broncos. He wrapped it up here by saying he's a guy to keep a close eye on. He's only 21 years old. He's just scratching the surface of his ability, but he's got the athleticism, the pure talent, and the overall solid blocking ability. Not just that, not just the blocking ability. He has a lot of that will. Like, he wants to be a good blocker. And that's what you got to love about Oronde Gadsen. So, guys, if you don't know about him, go check him out. Really, really solid player. I enjoyed watching all the films and doing some research on the kid. I should have my tight end rankings hopefully done and finalized, in the next couple of days. So keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, y'all be sure to spend time with those that you love the most, man. Take care of yourselves. And until the next